Rain interrupted Anheuser-Busch Golf Tournament being held in Williamsburg, Virginia, with a 36-hole total of 134. That's 8 under par. Pete managed a 68 before a series of thunderstorms forced suspension of play on Saturday. The tournament has also been cut short now by 1 day. Bill Rogers and Rick Massengale are currently in second place at 136. Another busy day in Major League Baseball as we check our scoreboard in the American League. Baltimore outlasted Oakland 5-4 in 13 innings. Detroit took Texas 3-1. Toronto trounced Chicago 8-1. Seattle embarrassed Cleveland 9-0. The New York Yankees clipped California 6-5. The big hit was Jerry Mumphrey's solo homer in the bottom of the ninth that broke a 5-5 deadlock. It was Mumphrey's second home run in as many days. He only has 3 all year. Oscar Gamble also homered for New York, his 10th. Elsewhere in the American League, Milwaukee whipped Kansas City 7-4, while Minnesota beat Boston 5-3. In the National League, St. Louis stung Houston 5-1. San Francisco sank Montreal 5-2. Cincinnati defeated Chicago by the same score, 5-2. The Reds scored when Danny Dreesen sliced one to the first baseman. Then he beat out the pitcher to the bag. Then Johnny Bench came up and blasted his 7th home run. Right there, we're looking at Danny Dreesen slicing it to first base. Run scores from third base. And here we go with Johnny Bench responding with his 7th home run of the season to left field. That scored Dreesen along with him. The Reds went on to win that one 5-2. Elsewhere in the senior circuit, Atlanta clipped Pittsburgh 4-3. Los Angeles edged Philadelphia 3-2, while New York sank San Diego 4-3. WBA lightweight champion Ray Boom Boom Mancini successfully defended his title for the first time on Saturday by stopping former champion Ernesta España in the 6th round by a TKO. The bout ended in an unusual way, bordering on controversy. Bell had already rung to win the 6th, but Mancini continued to hammer away at España. The referee, who did not hear the bell, stopped the contest, thus awarding Mancini the victory and a successful title defense. That's it for sports for now. Me, I'm Paul Guanzon. Next SNC Sports Report in a half hour.
Whale hunters around the world may have to settle for less next year. The International Whaling Commission Saturday closed its week-long meeting, ruling that 25% fewer whales can be hunted in 1983. That's a step toward a total ban on commercial whaling by 1986. Japan, Norway, and the Soviet Union voted against the total ban. The 3 countries took about 90% of last year's total catch. But unlike Japan and Norway, the Soviets did not say they would defy the ban. The Whaling Commission does not have the power to enforce its regulations, but individual nations can forbid whaling in their territorial waters. 4 children were killed when a miniature electric train derailed and burst into flames on the island of Zanzibar off the Tanzanian coast. The government newspaper says 20 children were wounded in the accident Friday, 16 of them critically. The children were at a playground to celebrate a Muslim feast.
This is the Satellite News Channel, the non-stop news machine.
It's 48 minutes after the hour. As U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Philip Habib, prepares for his meeting Sunday with Egyptian President Mubarak in Cairo, he is the subject of a new issue in the United States. A spokesman for the Bechtel Corporation confirms that Habib is one of its consultants. Bechtel is a multinational construction and engineering firm doing business with several Arab nations. Habib was hired by then Bechtel President and now Secretary of State George Shultz. Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger was also a member of Bechtel's executive staff. Israeli bombers raided the city of Beirut for the 3rd consecutive day Saturday. Correspondent Richard Vaughn reports many civilians have been hurt in the latest fighting.
Wave after wave of Israeli planes swept out of the sky at intervals of 3 minutes or so, dropping their bombs on West Beirut. The most heavily hit areas were Palestinian positions in the Bir Hassan district of the city and along the coastal Beirut-Sidon highway. The raids followed an exchange of artillery duels in the capital's southern suburbs. Israeli gunboats also fired round after round at coastal areas and at some inland targets. Casualty figures from the 3 days of air raids over Beirut are expected to be high and include many civilians. Some of those being treated for injuries had phosphorus burns from the controversial bombs being dropped by the Israelis despite international concern at their use. Hospitals are having a hard time treating the large numbers of wounded, often while under attack themselves.
That was correspondent Richard Vaughn reporting. Southern Japan is digging out from beneath the muddy rubble of a ferocious monsoon season as the torrential rains continue to fall for a third day. We have a report from SNC's Charles Silverstein.
Southern Japan is being buried under a powerful Asiatic monsoon. The Pacific-bound nation expects gale force winds and rain twice a year, around early July and in September. But the ferociousness of this particular storm, now in its second day, has paralyzed much of Kyushu Island and Nagasaki City. And if the swollen Shikara River rolls over its banks, much of Japan's southern farmland will be flooded. The statistics tell part of the story: 10,000 houses covered with debris, destroyed, and 40,000 homes without gas, electricity, and telephone service. And there are the dead, more than 100 bodies recovered so far, and police fear more victims among the 300 already missing. But another side of this tragedy is revealed in the exhaustion and anguish etched into the faces of the storm's victims. For these people, the memories of this tragedy won't fade away when the clouds part. Charles Silverstein, Satellite News Channel.
Police now put the death toll on the Japanese flooding at 151. At least 200 people are missing. 51 minutes after the hour now. Time for weather news with John Beladowitz.
Well, thank goodness we have nothing like that to worry about here in the United States, those heavy rains. We have had some thunderstorm activity, but only a little bit of localized flooding along the Gulf Coast. Most of that was around the Pensacola area of Florida. Still seeing some thundershower activity in that area right along the panhandle here. You see some very spotty clouds also continuing westward into parts of southern Louisiana and also the eastern coast of Texas right along the Gulf Coast. And these storms will have a tendency to die down in the next few hours. But once again, during the day on Sunday, we're going to see lots of shower and thunderstorm activity over the southeastern part of the United States. There's a lot of moisture down there, and with more moist air coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and also the Atlantic Ocean, the interaction of the two is going to make the conditions right for lots of thunderstorms later on in the day. Few clouds over Maine this hour, just a few light rain showers in the western part of the state, and more rain showers continuing. Some heavy thunderstorms also at this hour still over western South Dakota. They're gradually moving to the northeast, and they'll also die out in the next couple of hours. Here's our forecast for later on Sunday morning, showing pleasant conditions over much of the east coast from Virginia northward up to southern New England. We will see some cloud cover, and we're already seeing that in Maine right now. It'll also spread into parts of the Great Lakes area and also western New York State, parts of northern New England later on in the day. But the early part of the day shouldn't be too bad. Skies are basically fair to clear in that area right now. Some showers over the Great Lakes during the afternoon. Also a lot more thunderstorm activity over the southeastern states, including Florida, which has had a lot of rain during the month of July. We're going to see a lot more later on Sunday, probably on Monday too. Also over the Rocky Mountain states and Great Basin areas, we're going to see scattered thunderstorms during the day. Our rainfall forecast looks like this. We're going to see heavy rains again over parts of Florida during the day on Sunday. Scattered showers over Maine and northern New England, and also another heavy area to look at, parts of Utah and northern Arizona going up toward the northern Rockies. I'm John Beladowitz. More weather in 15 minutes on your Satellite News Channel.
It's 54 minutes after the hour. A 3-alarm fire swept through a Massachusetts stable Sunday morning, killing up to 3 expensive thoroughbred horses. Officials are still on the scene of the stable fire in Revere, Massachusetts, where other horses are said to be jittery and running loose on the property. The stables are connected with the Suffolk Downs thoroughbred racetrack in Boston. There's still no word on what caused Saturday's fatal house fire in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. That fire claimed the lives of 5 children. Among the dead, a 4-month-old baby, the oldest child, a 10-year-old girl. Police say the parents were away from the house when the blaze started. It apparently began on the 3rd floor of the 3-story home. Both parents were treated for shock when they learned all their 5 children had perished in the fire. 6 firefighters were hurt in southern Nevada when a helicopter overturned Saturday while it was landing at the Spring Mountain Range. The firemen were battling a 3-day-old blaze that has consumed several thousand acres. A hospital spokesman says none of the men appeared to be injured seriously. Criminal charges may be filed in the deaths of 2 children in Hollywood. The 2 were Vietnamese actors who were working with actor Vic Morrow when all 3 were killed Friday by a helicopter that crashed. The California Department of Industrial Relations says the children should not have been working so late at night. It was a violation of the state child labor laws. The children were part of a movie project with Morrow when the accident occurred. State law requires companies to get permits for children to work at night. A Warner Brothers spokesman says he does not know why the permits were not filed. Water pollution is always a problem in Pittsburgh's Allegheny River, but now that problem is much more apparent. Pat Crosby from our regional associate KDKA reports on the latest flare-up and who it's affecting.
It's called water pollution. It came swarming downstream yesterday and today, apparently after being log jammed by some barges that have been moved. The owners of hundreds of boats in the area were outraged. It was up to marina owners to help clean it up.
I've been putting up with it for 10 years. I don't know what to do about it. I called the Coast Guard yesterday. They were going to send somebody over there. Everybody's been calling. Nothing's being done. I'd just like to know who's responsible for it.
Well, let them do the same thing I do. Work it out. That's all.
They seem to think that you were going to protect their boats with the barge, maybe put a barge there and cover it up.
Why should I? They ain't doing nothing for me. Outside of causing me trouble.
Who is to blame? The Coast Guard reportedly surveyed the area at the request of the upset boat owners. No disciplinary action was taken, and that's not all. Grimm says the next time a big rain comes along, the same thing could happen again.
That was Pat Crosby reporting from Pittsburgh. The Soviet Union says the United States is getting tough with trading partners in order to protect the faltering American economy. The Soviet news agency TASS made that claim Saturday, saying that America wants to intimidate its allies into falling into line. But they said that would only lead to stepping up the arms race and possibly even to a nuclear confrontation. Meanwhile, Italy has followed France's lead and has decided to sell the Soviets equipment for the natural gas pipeline. Millions of dollars of turbines will be sold to the Soviets, which will be used to pump natural gas to the west. The turbines are made in Italy, but are designed by an American company, General Electric. Well, in lighter news, if you wanted to cool off on Saturday, one of the places to be was in the parking lot of a Denver restaurant. As part of a citywide celebration, workers there put together an 8 by 12-foot ice cream sandwich, claimed to be the largest ever made in the world. Temperature soared to 97 degrees as a dozen workers raced to finish the task. Before it melted anyway, a task that required 64 pans of chocolate graham cracker crust and 120 gallons of French vanilla ice cream. For those workers who worked up an appetite during the project, it must have been difficult to keep their hands out of the pie, as it were. 58 minutes after the hour, time to find out what stories are coming up here on the Satellite News Channel. Here's Ken Alford.
Deborah, here are some of the stories making headlines. Japan trying to recover from two natural phenomena in the south. Monsoon rains continuing, adding to the worst flood disaster in 25 years. And in eastern Japan, an earthquake has registered 7 points on the Richter scale. As U.S. envoy Philip Habib continues his Mideast peace mission, a report at home says the envoy is a consultant of the Bechtel Corporation, a company with financial ties to many Arab countries. Israel's confirming it. It's lost one of its warplanes over Lebanon. It was shot down by Syrian missiles. In Zimbabwe, 6 tourists, including 2 Americans, being held hostage by kidnappers who demand freedom for military prisoners there. All these stories, plus the latest in business news. We'll have the weather and the sports. It's coming up next on your Satellite News Channel. Stay with us.
This is the Satellite News Channel. Give us 18 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Good morning to you. I'm Ken Alvord, and here's what's going on at this hour. Well, another figure in the Reagan administration is being linked to the Bechtel Corporation, a company with extensive ties in the Arab world. Congressional critics have questioned the influence of the company, which has employed both Secretary of State George Shultz and Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger. Well, now, the Washington Post reports that Philip Habib, President Reagan's special emissary to the Middle East, is a Bechtel Corporation consultant. Bechtel says only that Habib's role has been minimal and that the company has had little contact with him since he undertook his current diplomatic mission. The White House is saying it won't comment on Habib's Bechtel connection. It adds he is doing a good job for the president in the Lebanon crisis. On Capitol Hill, South Dakota Senator Larry Pressler says the Habib matter is very, very serious and could cost him credibility in negotiations with Israel. Habib, by the way, is scheduled to meet with Egyptian President Mubarak in Cairo at this hour. And in Lebanon, the Israelis continued to pound PLO positions with tank and artillery fire and Syrian forces in northern Lebanon. And Israeli jets flew bombing raids against the Syrians in an effort to knock out the advanced SAM missiles. One of those missiles knocked out an Israeli jet instead. The 2 men on board were captured by the Syrians. The SAM-8 missile is built by the Soviets. It's the first time it's been used in the battle in Beirut. The State Department says it's airlifting military equipment to Somalia. The Somali president requesting that equipment after the border war with Ethiopia flared up again. In Somalia, Richard Vaughn reports on the latest fighting in the disputed desert region.
The renewed fighting along the Somali-Ethiopian border is the most serious between the two countries since 1978. The Ethiopians disclaim all responsibility for the latest incursions, insisting that it's the work of the Somali Democratic Salvation Front, a group opposed to the regime of President Siad Barre. Western observers, however, think that the main thrust consists of Ethiopian troops with a thin screen of Somali dissidents. The Ethiopian forces are far bigger and better equipped than the Somalis, but they don't appear to be pushing forward, contenting themselves with hit-and-run attacks across the frontier. The ill-supplied Somalis are reduced to stripping boots, helmets, and anything that could be of use from dead bodies. Somalia has protested to the Soviet Union about its support for the Ethiopian-backed rebels. And President Barre has announced that the U.S. government has now agreed to airlift weapons into Somalia, and this may well alter the balance of the conflict.
Richard Vaughn reporting from Somalia. Well, in Zimbabwe, armed political dissidents now say they're going to execute 6 tourists, including 2 Americans, if their demands aren't met. Those dissidents kidnapped a tour group on Friday, released the guide and 3 women. They carried the kidnappers' demands to authorities. What do they want? They want political prisoners in Zimbabwe released immediately. But they didn't give a specific time limit for those demands to be met. In addition to the 2 Americans, the kidnappers are also holding 2 from Britain, 2 more from Australia. In Japan, rescue crews still looking for victims in the worst flood in a quarter century there. At least 151 people are known dead. SNC's Ray Falk reports that hundreds are missing and thousands homeless.
Japan's large southern island of Kyushu is now heading for a second complete day of torrential rain. The death toll is already far more than 100. Police fear that another 300, now missing, may eventually be found dead under massive landslides or washed away by the swollen rivers. More than 400 houses have been destroyed, and 31,000 other homes are badly flooded. Roads are blocked by mud and rocks, or are so deep in water they cannot be used. Most railroads around Kyushu Island are not